K Kay Moody, friend, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to see you today. Hi, good to see you again. Yes. So, for those who are not familiar, please tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your work life balance, what it's like right now, and how it's different maybe from other people in your chosen profession.
Okay, so I'm an emergency medicine physician. I've practiced several places. I was med school in Florida, residency in Philadelphia, practiced in Tennessee for 4 years. Now I'm in Washington State. Um, so I love emergency medicine. I think it was absolutely the right choice for me. The way it's different now is that I recently turned 60 and I've kind of backed it up a little bit and I'm working part-time and I'm not working night shifts and I'm at an urgent care. I still work some emergency medicine shifts. I help out at a sort of a rural critical access hospital, 24-hour shifts occasionally.
So, when did you decide to downshift, if you will, to part-time and take away the night shifts? Was this a recent change?
It was about 2 years ago. So with emergency medicine, as you probably know, we work a lot of nights, weekends, holidays, weird long shifts. They're usually always 12-hour shifts, and, since we have to work days and nights, it's kind of challenging to figure out how, with our circadian rhythm, to set that up. Do we work 3 nights and then 2 days and then back to nights, and then, if you have to do 6 nights and 6 days within a month period, is it better to flip, flip, flip and do shorter segments, or is it better to do longer periods? And so towards the end of when I was working, I was doing 6 night shifts, which is 6 12-hour shifts in a row. And then I would have a few days off, and then I would do 6-day shifts, and then I would flip back to 6 nights and then 6 days, and it was horrendous to say the least. It got it over with, and it kept my circadian rhythm from having to flip back and forth, but it posed a real challenge for days lost in my life, because when you work the 6 night shifts, of course, you're sleeping during the day. You're not awake when the rest of the world is awake. And it would take me about 4 days to recover after those 6 night shifts to kind of get back to feeling like I could, be alive in the daytime. And then I'd go right back to working 6 days in a row. And so it was just this constant flipping. And even though I could function fine at night, I wasn't tired. I was awake at night after I sort of started doing the nights, sleeping during the days. I flipped pretty easily, but flipping from the night back to the days, it took longer and longer. And so some ERs recognize that that's a problem as we get older. The circadian rhythm shifts and don't have their after 55 ER doctors work night shifts anymore. But you have to have a large enough group to be able to do that. And I was working in a smaller facility and it was just not a possibility. So I went ahead and backed up and said, okay, urgent care for a while. Let's see. It took a lot of kind of mental gymnastics for me to do that, because one of the things that I love the most is critical care. Like, really, really the sickest, the scariest, one of the things that I felt good being able to have had the training and the knowledge to help folks that were the most critical. So I don't get that in the urgent care, but it's replaced by other benefits that are just wonderful and so fulfilling, and that is time to sit with my patients and hear them. Where in the ER, you're so busy, you may be one doctor and 20 patients, but in the urgent care, you're one doctor with 4 patients. And so the time with each patient is so beautiful. And I feel like at this point in my life, I have that connection that's so fulfilling with each patient. So it was a tough choice for me to make, to step away from critical care, but I've been very pleased. That gap has been filled with the love and the empathy and the connection that I feel with the patients.
That's a really good example of what I always talk about, which is that there are trade-offs in anything that you're gonna do, and there is no one perfect job. There's always gonna be an upside and a downside to any choice you make, and so that can be very comforting in a way because a lot of people are very reticent to make a change and to make those choices because they're worried that they're gonna make a big mistake. And so thank
Mhm.
you for sharing that because it really shows that there are other benefits that you may not even identify with making this change that you're talking about, and sometimes it gets to a point where you're like, "I just can't deal with the negatives of the other
Mhm.
more." So talk about that, like, what was there something that prompted you to lean out and go this different direction at this time in your life besides feeling like you had difficulty with recovery? Was there any kind of inciting event or anything that happened to you that really was the last straw?
Yeah, there was, and it's still going on. I would say most physicians who practice emergency medicine and some other specialties that are high risk as well, part of dealing with the sickest patients, occasionally there will be bad outcomes, even if you do everything absolutely right. And we know that going in, we do. We know that's the risk that we take, that it hurts our heart when we lose someone. Um, but the thing that we don't, oh goodness, that may cry.
If you do, that's okay.
The thing that we're not taught is the toll that it takes on us when we lose our patients, compounded by if we are sued. Malpractice is a big risk in the critical care specialties. As you know, I believe you're anesthesiology. And so, surgeons and trauma surgeons and orthopedic, everyone that kind of deals with very critical, potentially trauma patients, really sick patients. e- Even if you do everything right, you're not always going to be able to save them. And we come home and we sort of find a place. Maybe we sit in the car, maybe we cry, maybe we journal, whatever it is. Everyone has a different way of kind of dealing with that. And a lot of healthy ways is to go and exercise and walk in the forest and be in nature and pray, meditate. But occasionally, high risk critical care physicians face malpractice lawsuits, even if they do the right thing. And then that adds an extreme layer of moral injury because you look at it and you realize, yes, I'm human. I have made mistakes and I will make mistakes because I'm human. But if you look at a situation in a case that you're being sued for and you can see that every step of the way you made every correct decision and you're still sued and it can go on for a decade, the moral injury of that is so great, probably greater for someone who cares a lot. And I don't know, that was a turning point for me.
Yeah.
I just didn't I don't know, I didn't wanna take the risk of being tortured again for 10 years, and I felt like maybe urgent care, I can still I consider getting out of medicine altogether because the moral injury was so great that to think that I could be punished for doing the right thing, but it is what it is. It is a risk that we take when we practice medicine, unfortunately, and that was a big turning point for me, so, um, I said, I'm getting out of medicine completely." Fortunately, I was rescued by someone who works at urgent care and said, "Oh, no, you'll love this. You'll love it. Come, at least for a little while, try it out. Maybe you'll love it." And thankfully, I do love it, and I still do, and I've been doing it for 2 years, and it saved me from stopping practicing altogether.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for just being able to admit this difficult thing that I know is still ongoing for you, that you can't talk too much about, but, It is something that a lot of people in this audience really need to hear, because if you're facing a complaint or a case, you are not alone. It is very common, and it happens to even people, like you said, who do exactly what they're supposed to do. And they just happen to be involved in the wrong particular case. And it can really take a toll in so many ways. You mentioned just also, besides trying to shift your work and find something that was sustainable related to this incident, you talked about things that are non-work related. One of the things that I know that you do, because we know each other, is that you love to spend time in nature, and you have some properties that you purchased that you're fixing up, that you're working on, that you then rent out. So talk about that passion too, and how that has healed you, and what you do in that realm.
Yes. So in 2018, I set up a company called Glacier Rock Wellness Ranch, and it's 75 acres on a river. One whole one whole border is a river, the Couts River, and another section is the creek that runs into the river. And it is just a beautiful sanctuary for healing, in my opinion. I mean, I'm a little biased maybe, but but it's the original reason for its beginning was that I had set up a Facebook group to help doctors connect with one another and help one another, because we all face these same challenges. And I set this group up in residency, way back in residency when Facebook groups were first a thing. I found out about it, and I put this group together called EM Docs, and it's all emergency medicine physicians, because I wanted to stay connected to some of the people that I had met and befriended at the ACEP conferences, American College of Emergency Physician conferences. And I didn't want to just see them once a year. I made these connections, and they were very supportive, and I wanted to stay connected. And so I was like, oh, Facebook group, that's perfect. I'll make a little group, and the 10 of us maybe will be on this group together, and we can talk back and forth and support each other when we have these challenges that we all face that are so similar in emergency medicine. And it turns out that then Facebook made it where friends could add their friends, and then they could add their friends. And when that happened, it just went exponentially grew. And beyond what I had imagined, I knew that I needed support and my friends needed support. I didn't know we all needed that connection, but turns out we do. And so it was just a little niche that sort of happened because I was reaching out for support with colleagues myself. And now there's, I don't know, I've lost track, 27,000 emergency physicians all over the world, like from
Wow.
every continent except maybe none in Antarctica, but emergency medicine. And the funny thing is, even in other countries, like we share similar challenges, maybe not the exact setup, but sort of overcoming the adversity of losing patients or dealing with resource supplies. There's just a lot that we deal with that are so similar, and oftentimes people will, but because back to your question, from that group, I started thinking about how, yes, we're connecting online, but there is nothing that replaces face to face. You and I have sat on the yoga deck by the river, and the connection there, even though this is great on the Zoom call, it was so much
Not
better.
the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much better to sit together and bond in nature rather than being across the screen in three dimensions with the world all around you and sharing that same world and hearing the same bird and seeing the same eagle fly across or watching the rocks go over the river. The world has evolved around us with technology, but humans, our bodies and our needs and our innate beings haven't evolved as fast as technology has. And I feel like, and have always felt like, we still need that human connection. And so that is why Glacier Rock became Glacier Rock, because I wanted a place where we could come together and have nature that is sort of private enough that there's not big crowds, that we can sit in quiet and hear the nature sounds and share together around a campfire.
Yes, so I know that you use this place as a gathering place for physician groups,
Mhm.
and you and I are mutually in a group where we conducted a retreat in 2024 and had that there. It was a small, intimate group of physician women, and it was just magical.
Oh, it
I
was.
just recently recorded a podcast that I will link to in these show notes about the magic of retreats and why everyone should consider going on one.
No.
Because you form bonds with people, like you said, in a very short period of time. It's an immersive experience and it cannot be replaced by virtual interactions. And I know that you also rent out the property to
Mhm.
individuals or small groups.
Mhm.
And when I was thinking about the Facebook group, I had forgotten that you had EM Docs. So you also have a group that you manage that is for doctors who have rental properties that they can
Mhm.
share with each other.
Mhm.
And so talk about why you decided to start that group too.
Yeah, and, same sort of situation. It was kind of an outgrowth of EM Docs. There were a couple of people on EM Docs who were starting to have Airbnbs and short-term rentals, and they asked me if they could post on EM Docs, and I was trying to keep advertising off of the group because I wanted to keep the subject. This is not a group about short-term rentals. This is a group about emergency medicine. And so, yes, you're doing this on the side, which is wonderful, and it helps you to have a side gig and something to focus on to bring you happiness. But I don't really want advertising to flood EM Docs and make it about that. So I said, you know what? Fine. I'll just make a secondary group and you can put it over there. I know there's not as many people, but everyone who I'll just sort of like tell people on EM Docs if they want to go rent from a colleague, here's the group, go join that group and you can connect with each other that way. So again, it was just to try to help people who wanted to rent from each other, people who wanted to rent to each other to find each other. I had no idea that group was going to take off like it did either. Now there's like, I don't know, over 65,000 in that group, I think.
Really? Wow.
It's so crazy. I can't believe it. It just went again. Again, it's, I guess, a niche that people wanted. And so it's not just emergency medicine doctors. I think that's why I was able to grow larger because it's not finite with one specialty. It's all specialties. It's
That
still
makes
an all physician group, but it's all specialties.
Well, tell me about what the secrets are then to from a work-life balance standpoint to managing 2 big Facebook groups. Like, how does that fit into your daily or weekly time that you spend?
Yeah, so the Facebook groups, I try really hard just to have the main rule is be nice to each other. And usually that works. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't censor. A lot of times it drives me crazy because somebody will do something mean and then I get 700 messages in one day.
Right, reporting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. And so most of the time, it just runs itself. No big deal. Occasionally, someone will say something really snarky and everybody starts fighting, and especially around election time. Everybody's got strong opinions and they all want me to shut the other person up, censor them, tell them to get off, tell them to stop talking. I don't censor. I've never censored. I don't delete what they put unless it's a blatant advertisement, like buy my skincare product. No, we're deleting on it. But if someone is speaking their mind about something that's very off topic and everyone starts to fight about it, I don't delete what they say. I just turn off commenting and then that sort of like makes it fall to the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that way, that's my way of sort of like not letting it be at the top of the feed for 3 days.
Mhm.
And if people wanna go find it, they can find it and they can argue about it. That's how I try to keep the peace as best I can. And of course, it depends too on if if I'm working 6 days in a row, I'm not seeing any of that. There may be a hot topic that's at the top for 5 days, and I may not even see it because I'm working. And if it's 12 hours and I come home, I'm going to bed and going to work the next day. And then, of course, people will decide that, oh, well, she agrees with this. Oh, she's a villain. She's a bad person. She thinks they're right. And it's like, no, I'm working. I didn't see it. What? But I'm engaged. I just don't. I just let people do what they're
I
going to do.
like
They're
that.
all adults.
Yeah, I like that laissez-faire attitude. How do you personally deal with the negativity of someone saying or making assumptions about you and saying like,
Mhm.
well, you must agree with this jerk off. So then, what are you going to do? How do
Mhm.
you deal with those kind of like negative comments?
I've gotten used to it. I've gotten very used to it. I never wanted to be like known. I didn't want to go, I didn't want people to know my name. You know what I mean? Like besides my group of friends. So I didn't start this group for people to know who I was. Unfortunately, it kind of happens now because I'm the admin of the group where they're arguing. And so um when they start making up things about me, I just don't say anything back to them. I just don't address it. Let them think whatever they're going to think. I have no control of their thoughts about me. So let them think. I'm just a human woman who is trying to raise 5 kids and feed my chickens and go to church and keep my laundry done. I don't know. So I just don't even go there. I just leave it alone. Think what you
I
want.
think that's a great attitude. And if you haven't read that new book, Let Them by Mel Robbins, it's excellent.
Yeah, I haven't, but I think it should be next on my list because
Yeah,
I can
you will
see
really like it.
I think I'm wrong.
No, I read it and I'll link it in the show notes for anyone else who's interested. It's really popular, so it's out now. And you just mentioned 5 kids and chickens. You haven't really talked about your coastal life too much. So tell us about that because we have the chicken thing in common. And I know your girls are a little older. So talk about your family a little bit.
Well, so I have 5 children, but some of them are older than me now. I don't know how that happens. My oldest is 37. I don't know. That's older than me now. I'm kidding.
You still feel like you're 30.
I yeah, you already my
Me
age.
too.
Yeah, no, it's honestly it's the weirdest thing, but yeah, I have 3 sons and 2 daughters. The oldest and the youngest are almost 20 years apart, and they're wonderful humans. My boys are all well into their careers and doing wonderful things. And then my daughters are, one is in college and the other one is a senior in high school and she's starting college in the fall. So I'll be an empty nester.
I knew that was happening soon. That is exciting.
It is so exciting. It's so crazy. I've literally been continuously mothering for 37 years. And now I'm gonna have an empty nest. Oh my gosh. I didn't have to travel or something. I don't know. But traveling will be a little bit difficult too because you mentioned the chickens. And so I have a farm with chickens and um so I have ducks and horses and a
Oh, you do?
donkey and yeah. We
You
do
have horses?
geese. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
2 horses and a miniature donkey and 4 dogs. And we have geese. We have about 10 geese, and they are the dominant ones in the pasture always.
Yeah. That you really have like a full farm. I mean, we need to step it up a little bit. Crazy. Well, KK, this has been so fun to talk with you. I want to know if you have any last advice for other physicians who are listening or other professionals who are feeling like they're stuck, feeling like they're alone, and that they can't make any positive changes.
Mhm. Well, it's a really difficult transition to find a way out of burnout. It's not like you can just quit because most people have huge student loans. and
Mm.
it takes many years to pay off those student loans. And so also it's difficult to find anything that would replace enough income to meet those student loans. And so I would say early on, as soon as you get out of residency or at whatever point you are now, start today, try to pay off as much of your debt, whether it be student loan debt, any debt, credit card debt, especially, it's very high. Pay off your debt first. And it seems like, oh gosh, I don't want to, put all this towards this debt. I need to do this or that or buy a nicer house or a nicer car. But honestly, if you focus on paying off your debt first, you are investing in your own well being because you are buying freedom. The sooner you are debt free, the sooner you can have a little bit more flexibility in your career because you don't have that huge debt hanging over your head. It's a prison. And so I would say go after that debt and then start while you're still working. It's important to find something that really brings you joy, whether it's a side business, whether it's a hobby, something physical like jujitsu or yoga or even teaching yoga. Look, you're the prime example of that. But I mean, something that you can truly immerse yourself and engage in that brings you joy. It can bring in money or not. That's not the relevant part. You've got to find something, but it's kind of better if it's something that you can build that can be a secondary career that as you start to get those debts paid off and as you can start to go part-time while you're still working, if you're building this secondary career, there's a chance that you can transition slowly into that secondary career once you get your debt paid off with your medical income to sort of find a way to live your life of joy and fulfillment.
I think that's really good advice. And we had a financial expert physician, Dr. Disha Spath, on the podcast a few months ago, and I'll link to that episode where she talked about different strategies for tackling debt. It's really important, both from a standpoint of the actual math, but also from the mental load that
Yeah.
debt keeps in your head. It's very difficult to make changes and moves when that is looming over you like this huge, 500-pound weight.
It is. It's like a gorilla sitting on your shoulders.
Yes. Well, KK, I love chatting with you and seeing you, and I will see you again soon this year when we do another retreat at Glacier Rock Wellness. And thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, loved it. Thank you so much for having me, Dawn.